I would like to call to order City of Lawrence Redevelopment Commission meeting for Thursday, December 17th, 2020. We do have a quorum. And Joe,
yes.
Go ahead and read your statement for our online presence.
Yes. Thank you, David. Bear with me. The public is invited to attend the RDC meeting. The RDC may impose reasonable restrictions on the number of attendees to control public audience density in consideration with the existing COVID-19 national emergency. The public may participate remotely by dialing 463-777-8704, then entering PIN number 979631. Additionally, if you would like to provide comments remotely, please email them to jmurphy@cityoflawrence.org. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Next on our agenda, I am hoping and expecting that everyone, all of the commissioners, have had a chance to read, review the minutes from the last meeting. And does anyone have any comments or questions or changes for these minutes? And if not, can I have a motion to approve the meeting?
So moved.
Minutes.
Second.
Looks like we have a motion, a second. We'll do a roll call vote for approval of minutes. David Blunt.
Approved.
Jerry Clifford.
Approved.
Ray Rohana.
Approved.
Cheryl Sullivan.
Approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. I also am under the assumption that everyone has read and reviewed the claims and purchase orders for today's meeting, but can we have Jason Fenwick? Jason, can you provide kind of a review and breakdown of the claim and purchase orders that we're looking at?
Sure. There's only one claim on the agenda for December, and it is the November invoice from Barnes & Thornburg for Bruce's services to the commission. I believe it's $554. So that's the only claim on there for this month.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have any questions, comments, or concerns on these claims and purchase orders? And if not, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. We'll do a roll call vote for approval of claims and purchase orders for payment. David Blunt.
Approved.
Jerry Clifford.
Approved.
Ray Rohana.
Approved.
Cheryl Sullivan.
Approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Absolutely.
Next on our agenda is the RDC annual presentation. Joe, do you have something for this, or would you like to turn it over to Dan for our new business?
This will be, we're going to kick it over to Jason briefly so that he can give his annual presentation to other taxing units and also update the commission on the financial status of the commission.
Okay. Jason, go ahead.
Sure. I'll be brief on this, and then if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. This is a requirement for the commission to provide this annual report to the varying taxing units. What's contained in this annual report, there's a Schedule A, which includes the December 31st, 2019 cash balances in the 3 RDC funds, and then the current cash balance as of October 31st of this year. I will point out that is something that the commission does get updated on a monthly basis. The second section lists the allocation areas and the breakdown of the expenses incurred for each of those. The third section is just a list again of the three the three allocation areas and the assessed values of those. And then there's a Schedule D. You have that as well, which kind of lists the projected tax revenue from each of the allocation areas. And then lastly is a list of the debt service that is outstanding. I will point out that there is one bond issue that is payable from TIF revenues from Pendleton Pike. The other two bond issues that are outstanding, one for Monarch Beverage and one for Meyer Plastic, are paid through increment generated from those projects. So I'll leave it with that and then open it up if there are any questions.
I think you can move on, Jason.
So you want to move to new business now?
I'd like you to go ahead with your financial update, please.
Okay. So you should have two reports for December. I'd like to focus on the first one, which is an update of the pro forma financials for the Fund 406, which is our redevelopment capital fund. I think I last provided this maybe 2 months ago and mentioned last month that nothing had changed from the previous one. So we have updated this to reflect all of the activity for 2020. So we came in better than the pro forma that we put together in terms of where we expect to end 2020. For those of you who have a copy of that, we're projecting to have about 1.3 million in cash in Fund 406 at the end of the year. We did update 2021 with some additional expenses that we know will be out there. One was some environmental work for the Impro site, and we did include some updated numbers under the general consulting line, which will include a presentation that you will hear yet this afternoon. That has been included in the pro forma. Then moving out for the next 3 years, as we get into fiscal year 2023, we're still projecting with all the expected work to be done that we will still end 2023 with a projected cash balance of just a hair under 700,000, which is more or less kind of in line with where our projections were a couple of months ago. So with that, I'll open it up if there are any questions.
Good.
Oh, good. Okay, if we do not have any questions for Jason, we will move the meeting. We have an exciting meeting today, and Dan will go ahead and take over from here with our new business.
Thank you, President Blunt. The first thing is I'm asking for us to set the RDC meeting schedule for 2021. Historically, it's been the fourth Tuesday. I would like to make a change because of the way it aligns with the city council meeting and so many things that we want to accomplish. The time is really not very good. I would ask the commissioners to consider for 2021 having our RDC meetings the second Thursday of every month, with an executive session scheduled for 3:30 to be followed by a 4 to 5 o'clock public session. I would appreciate if we could get action on that item.
Dan, could you remind us the November and the December dates that you have proposed?
For next year?
Yes.
Cheryl, for November, that would fall on the second Thursday would be the 11th. And December, the second Thursday would be the 9th.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm seeking a motion to that effect, Mr. President, and a second and a passing of that.
Mr. President, I would like to move that we accept Dan's proposed meeting schedule as presented.
I'll second that.
David, I can't hear you. You're muted, buddy. David, you're muted. There you
Okay, I have a so moved and a second.
There you go.
Joe,
Yeah,
go
we
ahead
have
and
a-
do your roll call.
Yes, we have a motion, a second. We'll now move into a roll call vote to approve the 2021 RDC meeting schedule. David Blunt,
Approved.
Jerry Clifford,
Approved.
Ray Rohana,
Approved.
Cheryl Sullivan.
Approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Murphy, as recording secretary, I'm making the request that either you or delegated to MJ place calendar entries, send calendar invites to all of the commissioners,
Yep.
The mayor, the executive team, myself, to get those dates and times on the calendars, please.
Absolutely. Yes.
Before I go any further, I would be amiss not to thank everybody that's on this meeting that's joined. I think this is a record attendance to any RDC members meeting since I've been here. There are some people and faces here that I don't know, but from Greg to Briley to all the names I see appearing here, I welcome you and thank you for your interest on behalf of the RDC in the city. Don, whomever you are, we appreciate having you on. I believe this is one of the most monumental RDC meetings probably in the city's history of what we're going to discuss tonight. The first item is, many of you've known that we've had a blighted structure and property that's pretty viable property on Shadeland, known as 4423 Shadeland. The city's been wrestling this as an environmental issue and other things for years. Joel Markman from BCA is on. Joe, we appreciate BCA's help in getting us through all the environmental challenges with this site, but this is a very viable site. The city has offered this to sell this site. We've advertised it legally and as required. We do have all the item letters of comfort. There's nothing to restrict its development now. The only two restrictions, as I recall, where you can't drink the water from beneath it in an open well, and you can't put a house on it. Other than that, it's ready to develop. So with that, I'm asking Bruce Donaldson, as the RDC's legal counsel, to share with us what offers have come in by the deadline of 2:30 today, and to open those offers, please.
We have two offers. The first is from Stryker Property Group LLC on behalf of Drone Deck Corporation. And the offering price is $202,100. The second offer is from BCA Environmental Consultants, LLC. The offering price for the property is $30,000.
So there were a number of caveats and restrictions placed within the offers that had to be met. Various things as proposed use, time frame for improvements, those sorts of things. I would like to suggest to the commission that we take the two offers under advisement and be prepared to either A, have them come back and interview in January, or B, accept as you desire based upon the proposals once we've reviewed them. It would be my suggestion that council, myself, President Blount, review them. We would distribute those electronically for your review as commissioners. And then we'll make a decision at the 11th, on the 11th of January. If that meets the commission's approval, I would appreciate a motion second moving that forward.
But once again, I'd like to suggest that we accept Dan's, or I would rather make a motion that we accept Dan's activity schedule and timeline for our disposition of this property.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll now do a roll call vote. David Blunt.
Approved.
Jerry Clifford.
Approved?
Ray Rohana.
Approved.
Cheryl Sullivan.
Approved.
Thank
And
you.
I'd like to thank BCA and Drone Deck for the time they've invested in making legitimate proposals for this project. Okay, with that, the next item is we have a beautiful piece of property at 4711 German Church Road, the furthest property east in the city limits. It's nearly 3 acres, 2.9 acres, zoned for single-family residential development. Single-family agriculture residential development, I believe, is the actual zoning class. The city has demolished the structures, prepared the site for development. We would like to advertise that site for sale with a minimum offering price. I believe, Bruce, it's $95,000. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
$90,000.
$90,000, thank you. There is a caveat on it that development must have been started within 2 years, or the Redevelopment Commission will have the option of purchasing the property back at 60%. We would like to advertise that property for sale for consideration at our February second Thursday meeting. So I'd like to have the motion second and approval to advertise and solicit offers for that property.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 11, 2020. We'll do a roll call vote for approval. David Blunt.
Approved.
Jerry Clifford.
Approved.
Ray Rohana.
Approved.
Cheryl Sullivan.
Approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. On a nearly identical situation, we have 3 parcels that are all contiguous, a half a block north of Pendleton Pike on the east side of Franklin Road, known as 4411, 4421, 4429 Franklin. These are commercial properties. We do have one party that's expressed an interest in placing an offer. We cannot do that. We have to publicly advertise it, just as we did with German Church. I'm asking that on the same timeline, you give us permission to solicit offers for that property per statute, and that we consider those offers on the second Thursday of February.
I would make a motion that we accept Dan's plan for the properties at 4411, 21, and 29 Franklin Road under Resolution 12.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of resolution number 12, 2020. Do a roll call vote for approval. David Blunt.
Approved.
Jerry Clifford.
Approved.
Ray Rohana.
Approved.
Cheryl Sullivan.
Approved.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your support and always appreciate cooperation in these matters. Now we move to the most exciting part of the evening. For Mayor's on, I don't know how many years, Mayor and Jerry, we've talked about the Trades District, but it looks to me like it goes back a long time now. Certainly Cam Starnes, my predecessor, had passion for the Trades District. There have been a couple of studies. One was done by Holiday Property. BLN, as an engineering firm, has done some work. But we've never really taken the Trades District, as we're calling it, and put together a strategic, actionable plan of how to take down property, the infrastructure changes that need to be made, the street alignments and improvements that have to happen, It's my goal, and for lack of a better view, it won't be quite the same thing, but I'm looking at the trades district to become 20 years or 30 years from now what the nickel plate district is today in Fishers. That's the way I want to describe it to you. We have an opportunity to really change the impact of the gateway for the city of Lawrence. And in my view, it's Franklin Road, Post Road, Pendleton Pike, and 56th Street that are the drivers for what the city of Lawrence needs to become and wants to become. So to that extent, for the last several months, since my arrival with the mayor's input and support, Mr. Collier's input and support, Mr. Murphy's input and support, and the Redevelopment Commission, we have been looking very hard at what to do with Franklin Road in this particular district. To that extent, I have put together a plan with everybody's approval that would include an investigation that leads us to these actionable outcomes with scope, schedule, budget, timelines, statutory steps, everything we need to do to start to make this vision become a reality, which will include massive improvements to Franklin Road all the way from Post to 56th. In order to get this done, you have to have somebody that can help us think bigger, think outside of our box, challenge us to our thoughts. The firm that I've brought to the table to help us consider doing that is Synthesis Group. That may not be proper, Janelle, the group part, but Synthesis anyway. Janelle and Kevin Blankenship, who are on the phone, are representing Synthesis this evening. Over the last 3 months, we've crafted a plan to accomplish this. I have full confidence in Synthesis. They're largely contributed to what IAA, the Indianapolis International Airport, is today. They're one of the lead think tanks for the airport. We need that kind of power, in my view, to help Lawrence become what we want to become when we grow up. So we put this presentation plan together. There's financial and obligatory contracts that have been crafted that the commissioners have seen, the mayor's seen, and Bruce Donaldson, Joe Murphy, Jason Fenwick, and I have reviewed and negotiated. This evening, you're going to see that presentation, and I'm hoping that the commissioners at the end of the presentation feel as excited about it as the rest of us that we get a motion to move forward with this as our major, big, hairy, audacious goal for 2021. So with that, I'd like to introduce Janelle, and Janelle's going to tell you a little bit about Synthesis and take you through the plan.
Thank you, Dan. Just a sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. We had sent the presentation over. I'm prepared to either share my screen or I don't know if Joe is set up to bring that up for everybody and share his screen.
Janelle, why don't you go ahead and share your screen if that's all right with you?
Okay, not a problem.
Thank
Set
you.
up to do that. So before we do that, I first of all want to say thank you for including us on your agenda and allowing us the opportunity to share our proposed approach for the Trades District. It's a very exciting project for us. You know, when we look at these types of projects, Synthesis has done a number of them, and as principal in charge, I have been involved with all of them, and it's really interesting to watch how each community and each project takes on a personality of its own. So to that end, we've crafted a team that will help with the City of Lawrence and you all to figure out the best approach to the Trades District. I've brought with me, as Dan mentioned, Kevin Blankenship, who is on our leadership team and our business development director. Also Greg McMullen, who will be, he's our studio director and will be the project manager on the project with us. as Dan alluded to, Synthesis has done several visioning plans ranging in scale anywhere from 1 city block to 250 acres and larger. And you're going to see some examples of those projects in our presentation. But first, I want to introduce the rest of our team. Dan called on a couple of those folks. When we pull together information like this, it's vital that we have all the appropriate expertise around the table. And Don Staley with B3 is, their group's going to be focusing on the site and infrastructure analysis and planning. They're also going to be compiling and studying past planning efforts that Dan had alluded to. We want to make sure that we capitalize on the efforts that have already been put forth and really start to coalesce some of those ideas along with some of the traffic studies and other site-related information. The other group that we have with us today is Greg Napier and Briley Harshbarger with a company. They will be focused on financial strategies, helping us build budgets around the different concepts that we have as we do density studies, massing studies, and will ultimately be generating a pro forma that will help inform opportunities around some of the priority development areas. And ultimately, as Dan introduced, create some actionable outcomes that can be pursued. So let me go ahead and share my, pardon me?
Would you take just a second, because though I've known you for more than a decade and we've worked together on a number of fronts, most of these people don't know who Synthesis is. Would you just give the 2 or 3 minute bio of Synthesis and your WB status and the various things that, how you got to where you are?
I'd be glad to do that. I started the company in '98. We're an architecture firm that's located in downtown Indianapolis. We have grown to a point of designing $250 million in construction volume annually. We do serve 5 different markets predominantly. We have a couple of other markets or service lines that we also provide, and the visioning planning being one of those. And we have a leadership team of 5, 2 of whom you're seeing along with myself. And, we really enjoy the opportunity to be able to assist groups such as yourself in looking at where the opportunities exist that where perhaps it may be difficult for others to see, and really lay the groundwork for really opportunity that is hard to come by too unless you plan for it. And so that's really when we talk about the philosophical base of Synthesis, the company is named Synthesis because it's really a synthesis of ideas coming together to create that direction and that one project. And so I think you'll find as you work with us that we really encourage a tremendous amount of integration and collaboration. As Dan mentioned, we are a WBE firm and are involved in a lot of different endeavors through those pursuits as well. So does anyone have any questions about Synthesis? All right, hearing none, I will go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. That didn't work right. My apologies. I had this all set up this afternoon. Here we go. Is that better?
Yes.
That looks perfect
Okay.
for now.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we'll our focus area is, as Dan mentioned, the Trades District that's bounded by 465 on the west, Pendleton Pike to the south, Franklin Road, and one parcel east of Franklin Road on the east side, and then the railroad buffering the north side. We are pretty excited about this particular area because you already have a sense of what you want to do with it. With the location where it is, it's a prime area to create another gateway into the city of Lawrence. And with the fact that you already have established businesses in the area that start to really help brand it, at least give us a foundation for the branding. It's going to launch the project. We also understand, as Dan mentioned, that there's been a few studies looking at this, and so this is representative of some parts of one of those, and we really want to take a look at those to understand the introduction of infrastructure, where those opportunities are, and test some of those early thought processes, but also integrate maybe some other information, traffic studies, and some other things that would really play a part in determining how those things come together. So, how do we get there? Our visioning process is comprised of 4 different components: discovery, visioning, ideation, and creation. And those are all structured to provide you with recommendations that will be born out of research, data, analysis that are all specifically suited to the city of Lawrence. And so, the first being discovery. Well, what is that? That's really an internal view of the project. It's collecting all the information that has been generated. It's also collecting new information. It's allowing V3 to take a look at infrastructure, site configurations, and start to do an overlay of information with those. We would also want to work with the steering committee to identify specific parameters, such as stakeholders, timelines that we want to hit, and then also what does success look like, and establishing some hard, fast benchmarks that will allow everybody to understand the end goal. So once we've collected site inventory, we've met with key stakeholders to embrace them and understand what their vision may be, what maybe their business goals are, and start to just collect information, analyze it, and start to do some spatial studies, mapping, and then also identify some budgets. We always want to start at the very beginning, understanding what the budget framework looks like so that we know what we're working with. And it prevents a lot of backtracking later on. So, an example of some of the overlay of existing studies might look like this example from the Community Justice Campus project that we worked on. Our team was contracted directly with Citizens Energy Group at the time that they were amidst the negotiations with the city for the property that is now the Community Justice Campus. And they were really interested in understanding what kind of development potential there was, not only on the site, but then what impact did it have around the site within the Twin Air neighborhood. And so you'll see here with the framework plan, it's a collection of data points, nothing more at this point. It's collecting information about what exists on the site, immediately around the site, what may have influence on the site, and, you know, transportation, greenways, waterways, surrounding neighborhoods. We really don't know at this point where that information is going to take us. It's just data collection. But at the conclusion of this phase, we will have collected everything that exists about the site and compile our own analysis of the infrastructure and the site features and amenities. So then the next phase is the visioning. So you heard me say that the discovery aspect is, or discovery component is more internally focused. The key to our program is that the visioning piece is an external view, and that's really important. We want to take a look at research data. What are other like cities doing with these types of developments? What's working? What's not working? Maybe there's some related industries or related types of developments that may not be one for one, but may have some aspects or elements to them that could apply. And so that's where it becomes important for our group to really look at the neighborhood fabric and to look at what other influences there may be, because then that can drive some of the research that we do on the visioning side to see how we can capitalize or leverage on some of those potentials. On some of these, we'll even do social media listening to see what people are saying. And we've got some other research technologies available to us that we can employ during this phase. You know, and when we did the visioning study for the GM stamping plant site, we were working directly with the city and the Racer Trust group to compile a visioning plan with a pro forma that was then in turn used to solicit developers in a national search. And as a part of that visioning component of that study, we actually researched infill park projects in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, for both urban and suburban locations, just so we could really have a deeper understanding of what the potentials were. And it starts to, as that's documented then and distributed out potentially in an RFP to developers, it really starts to create some confidence in the project with those potential buyers and demonstrates the viability of the initiative. So, you know, this is where the magic happens really, because the ideation phase then takes all of the information that we collect about what we know of our site and combines that with all of these trends and other research that we've done. And we start to put those together into a whiteboard session. And, you know, I like to say during this phase, there are no bad ideas. You know, it's brainstorming. You just start putting ideas up on the wall, and it's incredible the energy that it creates and the ideas that it sparks. And it truly does help us drive the momentum of the outcomes to something that would otherwise maybe not have happened had we not gone through this step by step. So through that, then we also validate budget estimates, proposed schedules, because those are all going to be factors that play a part in what sticks and what doesn't stick in terms of overall concepts to pursue. So at this point, you go through that stage of putting all of your ideas out there, but then by the end of ideation, you've now pared it down into some workable concepts and ideas to pursue. And You know, and these, again, coming back to the community justice campus, you know, we start to put, by the end of that phase, just start to put some ideas on paper in terms of layout, integration into the existing neighborhood, and trying to evaluate what kind of opportunities may exist. So then once we get to that point, we're into the final component of creation. That's where we take the concepts and we try them on. We go in, we do actual massing models of building profiles to look at density, to look at scale. Are they 1-story? Does it make sense to go to 3-story? Evaluate those again against the surrounding neighborhoods, and generate cost models for each of those. And those cost models aren't just what is the construction cost, but those cost models also include what kind of increment can be generated for the TIF, what other types of financial strategies can be employed to generate revenue in the area. And you know, those are all going to be a principal part in how we refine the concepts down to a final recommendation. At the end of the creation component, then you would end up with a vision plan that does contain an overall pro forma that does include the business strategy aspects. It would include narratives and visual content that would articulate the research and the entire process that we've gone through. That would include many of the things that Dan was talking about as well, with, you know, potential site procurement opportunities and all of those levels of conversation that would take place throughout the process. And so, you know, in the end, this is really going to position the city of Lawrence with having the ability to be very proactive in pursuit of development opportunities rather than waiting on developers to find you. We could help you put together some very defined RFPs and processes, help you understand an implementation and phasing schedule that makes sense, and walk you through the process. This is a rendering that is an example of a community center concept that was along the fringe area of the Community Justice Project, and it really just serves as an example of a new brand for the village around the CJC campus. You know, the same thing with this building rendering. It was just to help people understand some of the things that can happen in the way this type of new development can start to impact the overall feel of the neighborhood. This particular rendering is out of our 16 Tech visioning plan. We did the original visioning study for 16 Tech with Mayor Ballard and his administration. And, you know, it was important to us to look at that whole parcel of around 250 acres at the time and understand not only internally how it could function, but externally then how is it impacting the neighborhood and how can it become an amenity. And this is representative of what became called Helix Park. That's a central spine that not only serves as an organizational tool throughout the campus, but also provides an additional front door for some of those interior property owners. And you know, serve to organize some layering to pedestrian travel as well as vehicular travel in various areas. So, you know, those are all aspects of things that we would want to look at for the Trades District. And these are some additional renderings that we put together to represent the 16 Tech potential development. Since that time, there have been residential projects done along Indiana Avenue that are very well represented in terms of scale and scope that you see here in these renderings. Then one of the other things that we like to do is if it becomes important to have this, we can generate video fly-throughs. And the whole idea with this is to help people see something that isn't there. I mean, this, at the time we did this, was a series of either abandoned buildings, underutilized buildings, a lot of vacant parking lots. It's, you know, it was space within the near downtown area that had been overlooked for a long time. And so it's really challenging for most people to understand the potential. So many of these types of tools we'll put together to help clients socialize the ideas and the vision, and really, you know, it can be used in a variety of different levels. It can be used in planning. It can be used in community meetings. It can also be used in an RFP process. So there's a variety of different ways that a tool like this can generate excitement around the development. And this is fairly lengthy, so I'm not going to make you sit through this. If you'd like to see more of it, I'd be happy to share it with you. But you can see here some of that central spine and how that plays out, and some of the whimsical artwork that was appropriate for this development, we were able to integrate into some sustainable elements down the middle of the district. So, you know, what does all this mean? You know, it really doesn't matter how many pretty pictures you put together for something like this, unless you can understand what impact it can have on a neighborhood, on a city. And I think it's a critical part of what we do. It's not just coming in with the ideas, but then the back half of this is really helping you understand how to implement it. And then what can it generate for you? The GM stamping plant, when we generated the pro forma on that, it was anticipated to offer up to 2 million square feet of office and lab space, co-working space, multifamily housing. It had the potential to create 9,000 jobs, and it still does. We forecasted $500 million in investments and potential donations. On the 16 Tech project, it has potential to generate $1.38 billion of total investment over the next 15 years. $92.5 million of initial investment, and I'm sure you've all seen a lot of the press releases lately of the construction that's currently underway. And Synthesis helped them even select a national firm to come in and do a signature bridge that they're getting ready to launch this next year. So the money is there. There's 1,000 construction jobs that it has potential to generate, and 12,000 new jobs when it's all said and done. Our plan, it's not listed here, but our plan for 16 Tech had projected 2.75 million square feet of potential office space and 100,000 square feet of retail. So think about the impact that could have not only on the immediate neighborhood, but also on the greater area. So how does this come together? We've broken our budget down into the different components. And so discovery, we're forecasting 3 months of effort at 31.5 in terms of a draw schedule. And we're prepared to start that at your convenience. With that, we would start some of the visioning effort during the discovery phase, but then continue that on beyond discovery for an additional month. And then following the visioning, for about a month, we would be undergoing the ideation with the whiteboard sessions and pulling together the concepts, the base concepts to pursue. And then finally, the creation piece, where we take all of the information, develop some of the final ideas, finalize the pro forma, and pull the entire report together would be in the final phase. And all of that we're projecting at 102.5 within an estimated 6 months. Now, that 6 months is predicated on being able to get stakeholder meetings aligned when we are hoping to do that. With COVID and some of the other challenges that we're currently facing, while we'd like to do most of that face-to-face, we'll be able to do that outreach virtually, but want to be sensitive to people's needs, and we'll work with you all on a more definitive schedule if you choose to move forward with the project. Additional, other services that we could provide, again, are that video fly-through, not really understanding yet what makes sense in terms of the extent of media and presentation materials that you may need. We've got that designated as an extended service. We do have a day in the life renderings included. 2 of them are included. If, again, there's some additional ones needed, we can certainly do that. This project, we did not see necessarily a strong fit for social media listening. However, if that changes, we can provide that on this project as well. On the traffic studies, we assume that there's because of the previous efforts, that there's studies that are probably already available, but would be able to supplement those with some additional work, as well as the drainage studies that we typically like to do on an effort like this. And with that, I'll take questions.
So before we go to questions, because I may be able to answer some of those as we go, I'd like to make a couple of points relative to this, and then piggyback on the dollars that you presented. So on the call, or on the meeting today, is Brenda Friege. She's probably surprised that I'm pulling her out of the group. But Brenda is a think tank person with IU that has a goal of finding some grant money for the city of Lawrence to study sustainable initiatives that we may want to undertake. I asked Brenda to be on this call because I believe there's other synergies that will come out of this once we start the train moving down the track. I think it's possible that we could try tie Brenda's grant money and her work into sustainable initiatives into what we want to do with the trades district. I also think that Dick Friege's on the call as well. Janelle, he is our liaison. He's a non-voting member of the RDC, but he's our liaison to the Lawrence Municipal School District.
Okay.
And as such, you are probably aware that we have a long history of working with the Trade Center at Lawrence Municipal School District. And I think that with the grant money and the initiatives that the governor's placing on trades and skilled training and skilled workforce, that we also have the ability to tie the state and the school corporation into this initiative, and we'll want them to be a stakeholder as we go through the process. So I don't want anybody to think that we're looking at this in a tunnel vision manner. We're looking at this as what needs to be the greater good for all parties and all interests. And to get synthesis started on this just provides a catalyst and the forum for us to let those parties express themselves and bring their ideas to the table. So I want you to know that that's in play. I also want the commissioners to understand. Joe, will you let me share a screen for a moment, please?
Yeah, there we go. You should be able to share your screen now that Janelle's done.
Let me know when you can see it. There you are.
You're good.
I get my mouse to work. This commissioners, is Exhibit A that is actually attached to the agreement as Jason, Joe, Bruce Donaldson, and I have negotiated on behalf of the RDC. It shows that I will be the owner's rep for the project, keeping the RDC fully apprised of what we're doing. It defines the basic scope in number 4, as we've already shown it to you graphically. It shows what we'll be responsible for and what all the parties are responsible for. But more importantly, I want you to see that we have the scope created with all of the things that have been committed by Synthesis in the agreement. And one of the things that I insisted on was that gets tied then to the compensation phase. And we actually have a draw schedule that mirrors what was presented by Freegee. So I think we've tied up all of the loose ends. And once we answer your questions, if you're so inclined, I'm asking this group to authorize President Blunt, Joe Murphy as recording secretary, Bruce Donaldson as legal counsel, and me as owner's representative to complete this agreement, execute it on behalf of the RDC so we can move forward with our work right after the holidays. That's what I have to say. So commissioners, it's your time to chime in. Joe, you can take me off and share whatever I need to do. Don't everybody speak at once.
Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments?
Mayor, do you have anything to contribute? You're on mute, Mayor.
Took it off. I didn't quite, that broke up there at the start. I didn't hear the first part of that. I think that Dan probably adequately projected certainly my great excitement about this type of project. I can tell you that I've been in Lawrence for most of my life, and I've always felt like, certainly, and one of the reasons why I even ran for mayor in the first place after having retired once, was that I began to identify Lawrence as being what I would classify as a hidden gem. We've never had the type of guidance on what it will take to get us to that next level. I've spent a good part of my 5 years speaking with other mayors in other cities that are next to us and trying to figure out what it would be and what it would take and what kind of commitment it would take to be able to kind of raise Lawrence up to their level, to become competitive with those around us. We happen to be in a critical and a very key time in this city's history, and certainly in those cities around us, as we begin to look very closely at this idea of regionalism and regional economies. I had a great conversation just yesterday with Scott Fadness about how Lawrence and Fishers and Noblesville can work together on some of our projects. When I see this presentation by Synthesis regarding our trades district, one of the reasons why I became so excited about it was that I could see very clearly how we can begin to partner with not only Lawrence Township Schools and with our trades district and their career center, but also looking with with Governor Holcomb's idea about next level and skilling up our workforce. And this trades district can create a situation in which we can become certainly an incubator for not only citizens of Lawrence, but citizens throughout the central Indiana to come to our area, begin to experience and take part in internships throughout the city. We already have a couple of other businesses that have moved to the city just in the last couple of years that are offering internships for us right now. These two happen not to be in the trades district. They're right along 59th Street. But I can tell you for sure that Freegee, the project that we just landed, or just completed today actually to move forward, will be someone, along with Midwest Remediation, who are ready to join in to that idea of skilling up our workforce. So having a plan like this and having the type of people that Synthesis has working for them to be able to give this idea life, I think is incredibly important. I will tell you today that I probably won't be around when this project is completed. This is not a 2 or a 3 year project. This is a project with a vision that looks probably looking at a decade from now. I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon, but I'm just telling you, we have to have the vision as a part of this RDC to be able to, for perhaps the very first time, to create a project of this magnitude that has this much potential to grow the city, and to grow the city in a very, very positive way. I think the timing couldn't be better than it is right now. And like I said, as I've already indicated to all the members of the RDC, my support for this project and my support for moving forward on this. So thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Dan, because as you guys know, other commissioners, Dan has been talking this presentation up for a while, and it still blew it out of the water for me, and I thought it was great. Commissioners, does anyone else have any comments or questions for anyone on the screen, actually?
I have a question.
Okay.
A couple questions. Janelle, that was really excellent. Under the discovery phase, you mentioned budgets being developed. Could you speak a little bit more to that? Is that budgets being developed for what the city of Lawrence is responsible for, or all encompassing budgets for developed for regardless of who pays? Could you just speak a little bit more to that?
Sure. Thank you. I think what I'd like to do is turn this over to Greg Napier and let him talk a bit about it. It's multifaceted in terms of budgeting. It's what kind of revenue can be generated, tax increment increases, what kind of benefits can come out of it. So I'll let Greg speak to that.
Yeah, thanks, Janelle, and thanks for the question, Cheryl. My background has been before the company. I actually worked with the research parks for Purdue. And to develop all of these parks, you had to have a plan, and that plan had to be a win-win-win. It couldn't just be a win-win. It needed to be a triple win, and the triple win has to do with the organization that may be looking to locate or develop, the organization that is also kind of in control of this, which is you folks. And the other one is for the community at large. And so we will have to look at budgets and pro formas holistically. And so that means that if someone is doing a development, they need to win. And if the people that are a part of this community and are going to utilize the development need to win. And frankly, your tax base needs to win, whether that's through the increment that you're creating here that you have within your TIF or other things. So we would be looking at that kind of holistically. Now, what I can tell you, and this comes from my professor at Purdue, is that we put together models, and the one thing I can guarantee you about a model is it will be wrong. But it is our best guess, and they're very useful in helping us make decisions. And I believe that is the data that we'll be pulling together and trying to bring things into some sort of scope. And it's still very dynamic, but it helped you to make informed decisions on how to work toward an implementation of the strategy. That's really where I think the numbers and budgets and things really drive toward. Again, will never be perfect, but it will be very informative, I think, in helping you to make decisions going forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to add, Cheryl, that there's also a site component to that development. And so, understanding infrastructure, understanding circulation needs through the site, And, you know, perhaps there are some investments that the city would need to make in terms of, you know, property procurement and those types of things. Don, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to the conversation.
Just that as we look at this comprehensively, we'll be keeping an eye out for anything that could have an impact on the development potential. And that could either be an opportunity that you could take advantage of, or it could be some kind of constraint that creates a challenge that has to be incorporated into the decision making. So, you know, we'll look at it from a very broad perspective. We've got expertise in everything. I like to tell people in everything from railroads to rain gardens. Anything site related, we've got expertise that will have their eyes on this. And so, you know, if in looking at your transportation information, anything surfaces that we understand could be an opportunity or a constraint, we'll pick up on that. If something about stormwater management provides either an opportunity or a constraint, we'll be looking for that. I mean, it could go as far as you're bordered by a railroad. You know, we've got expertise in railroads. So we'll just have our eyes on all the different dimensions of the property, and be looking for, you know, which things will impact your goals on this site.
Thank you.
And Janelle, I had a question for you. And this might be a question for you and Don and Greg and Mayor Collier and Dan. But when it comes to the ideation phase, who is going to be involved in those conversations? Is that like an economic development conversation? Is that whatever you guys think would be good? And I know our goal is the trades district, but I just wanted to know, how are you guys going to determine the people behind the ideation phase?
That's
Dave,
a great question.
That's a great question. So I think it's important that we understand how many people will be involved in helping us make some of these decisions. If you remember, one of the things that Janelle so adequately pointed out was the fact that she's going to go out and interview with stakeholders that are going to be a part of this project. And we really need to have the kind of input from those people who are going to be a big part of this trades district, and those who are going to benefit from this trades district. We want to hear them. We want them to weigh in. And so I think it was Greg that just said that one thing he can guarantee that the model will be wrong. We know that will happen. We know we're going to make changes in the model, but we also have an obligation to talk to people who are going to be directly impacted by this project and get their ideas and implement them. I can't tell you that every idea that we hear we're going to accept, but if we don't accept it, we need to be able to explain why we didn't accept that and why we're going to move in a different direction. I think it's incredibly important that we have their buy-in. That's one thing I think that one of the best things that I think that Janelle said when I heard this presentation. Janelle, it's the third time I threw those, so bear with me a little bit. But was that her willingness right away to say that we're going to go out and we're going to involve the stakeholders, not only in the trades district that we're identifying, but in and around the city of Lawrence.
Mike Webster is on here. For those of you that don't know Mike, he's the CEO and owner of Frigi. Mike will be making an investment in Frigi starting in March that's somewhere between $6 and $8 million. And they will be the new anchor facility that's going to set the architectural standards all the way down Pendleton Pike to Monarch on the north side of the pike. Mike, thank you for joining us. But Mike is the perfect example of one of the stakeholders. And one of the things that we have done in the last 6 or 8 weeks is I have physically inventoried the number of businesses in the trades district, and it might surprise you to know that there are over 50 businesses in the trades district today. And one of the things we hope to do, COVID's kind of hurt us, we'd hope to have a party or a celebration or an introduction in at City Hall this month and invite all those people in and start to get their feedback, and COVID just didn't allow that to happen. But Janelle is committed to being a part of that hosting group after the first year, however we figure out we're going to do it. And it's our intent to bring Mike and his team and all the other persons that are going to be impacted by this project as business people and get their input, as well as all the people around Lawrence that have other interests such as training and skilled workforce development and sustainability and all the many things we've talked about. Mike, do you have anything you want to contribute to this conversation?
No, I'm looking forward to being that anchor and really contributing to the community. So I think it's a great idea what you guys are doing. And I know at least one person on this call really likes the name of our company. See a familiar face on here that I think I know your dad, obviously better than you, but anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Did that answer your question adequately, David?
Yeah.
Are there any further questions from the group? If not, and if the commissioners would be so inclined, I would really appreciate a motion to move forward with this with a second and an approval.
President Blunt. David? Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Would it be, if I could, Bruce, since you're part of the team that's going to be working with Dan in finalizing this agreement, so that David, we can get the agreement to a point where we're satisfied with it and David can actually sign off on it, I'd like to make a motion, if you would, that you give us some words to frame the motion for us so that we can approve it.
Okay, I think the motion would be to, pardon me, the motion would be to approve the form of the agreement that's been presented to this meeting between the Redevelopment Commission and Synthesis in substantially the form presented today, with authorization of the President of the Commission to finalize and sign the agreement with the advice of council and the consultants to the Commission.
Sounds good. David, are you satisfied with that?
I am.
I would like to move that we accept the language that Bruce has just outlined for us.
And do I have a second?
I'd like to second the motion.
All right, great. We have a motion and a second. We'll now do a roll call vote for approval. David Blunt.
Approved.
Jerry Clifford.
Approved.
Ray Rohana.
Approved.
Cheryl Sullivan.
Approved.
Great, thank you very much.
I really can't express how much I appreciate the trust of everybody involved today and the support you're continuing to provide to the changes and the opportunities that we're trying to identify and move forward for the city of Lawrence. As I've expressed to some of you in my year-end communication, taking this job was somewhat questionable to me because I already had a full-time job. But I will tell you, I'm enjoying it immensely because of the support and the leadership that you all are providing. And I just can't thank you enough. This is a good example of that. So before I yield back to David for anything else, I would like to ask if there's anything else to come before this group before we adjourn for the holidays. This has been a very successful meeting, and I thank you. Anything else?
Just wish everybody a very happy holiday.
So, Mr. Blunt, I think you can move for adjournment unless you have something else.
May I ask one question while the mayor is also on the call? Is how are we going to handle the public communication, assuming all the agreements are worked out and contract is finally solved?
Well, what we'll do initially, Cheryl, is we'll do internal communication with the participating elements, and then we'll probably end up rolling this out as a part of, not only as a part of our economic development site on our website, but also we'll make several announcements via Facebook. We really want the community to know what's happening and as early as we can. We will kind of stage that information. We won't throw it all out at once. We'll put it out in phases. And I think what we can count on is each time that Synthesis comes up with their next phase, we will put that out first to the RDC and then out to the general public.
I also think this is a monumental step enough that at some point in the next 4 to 6 weeks, with the help of Synthesis crafting it, we should probably put out a press release to Inside Indiana through Jerry Dix.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, we have a real good, we have a very good relationship with IBJ, and I'm relatively sure they'll probably run a pretty good story on this when it comes out. We want to make sure and have our ducks in order. Cheryl, that's a great question.
That's in part why I was asking the question.
If you want what you can do, if you're not careful, you can end up getting misinformation out there. So we'll make sure we have all our ducks in order, and I've got a pretty good team of PR people that are working for the city. But that being said, we'll take guidance from Synthesis to people who have done this before, and before we roll anything out. I would tell that each of you on RDC should be ready that once we do roll this story out, be prepared for phone calls and interviews from people like IBJ who will want to be asking you about what's happening over here in Lawrence. It's really a great thing. I'm real proud of that fact, and I want people to be asking us about that, but just be prepared to be able to give an interview, and any information that you may need and may help you to be able to give a good interview, you just let us know and we'll get it out to you.
Okay. Just as a commissioner, I just would like to highly recommend that there be a full communication plan developed.
That's a great comment. I do have one more thing I almost missed that's exceptionally important. I need to acknowledge 3 people that have really contributed today. Jason, with the financial work, even under COVID. Thank you. Bruce Donaldson, in the first month as our legal counsel, you've really stepped up the plate to make everything happen today that's happened, a lot of work, and you didn't balk at all, and I want to thank you for that. And then most importantly, I don't think anybody on this call has a clue how hard Joe Murphy has worked through this COVID environment to not only support me and all the things I'm bringing to the table when I'm not in Lawrence, but to make all of these electronic meetings and have all the documents ready and get all the notices and links out and handle all the offerings we're doing. Joe, we can't thank you enough for what you're doing for the city of Lawrence and the commission, and particularly to support me. I hope you recognize that we don't take that lightly.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate the sentiment of that comment. It means a lot to me.
Back to you, David.
And I second everything Dan just said. Great job, Joe. As you know, I think very highly of you. And if there is nothing else to come before the commission, can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
I second.
All right, we have a motion, a second for adjournment. We'll do a roll call vote. David Blunt.
Approved.
Jerry Clifford.
Approved.
Ray Rohana.
Approved.
Cheryl Sullivan.
Approved.
Thank you very much.